Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Run the Nation right here at ATN Nation. Jeff Waldorf here. It's Monday. So welcome back. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Um, yeah, okay. I was going to go into what happened with my weekend, but it's kind of a sad tale. Uh, so, personal family stuff. Anyway, yeah, going to avoid that. Okay. Anyway, we got we got a good show for you guys today. A lot of interesting stuff. Hold on. I don't know where that came from. A little bit of breaking news as well to talk about. We'll get to that for our first story, actually. But first, before we get into the stuff, well, let me give you a breakdown. How about that? So we got a new poll out showing that Trump might be in a little bit of trouble. And what's the first thing Trump does? He attacks the people, the messenger. That's fun. We'll talk about that. Then we've got the recession, criticism on that, and one of the worst person, I guess one of the worst people at giving predictions, I think, in the history of mankind. We've got that. We're going to talk about him a little bit. Then we have a black woman that's shocked that her Trump supporting husband just happened to be a racist. I know, right? We've got Bernie Sanders' new criminal justice platform. We're going to talk about that as well. I'll give you the breakdown of what that is. And then, of course, we've got more trade war stuff. So, fun times, right? So, that's fun. Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out what what I want to announce because I've got a couple of things to talk about before we get into into today's show. But before I do that, patrons. I want to thank some patrons. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's how, of course, you can support the show. So I want to give a few shout outs to C. Innocent, Milton Holland, Ronald Harris, and Sean Matson. So thank you to those patrons, patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's so you can support the show. Uh, Other ways to support the show, of course, we got a Venmo, we have PayPal, we also have channel memberships. Um, that's you can do that by hitting the join button. I'm still trying to figure out what else I can do for members and patrons, etc. Uh, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so there's that. That's how you can help the show. Another thing is at the end of the month, it would be August 30 and the 31st. Uh, I will not be here. So I will actually be in New Jersey. So that's Friday and Saturday, I believe, respectively. So, of course, Saturday I'm not going to be here. But no show on Friday, the 30th, because I will be in traveling to New Jersey. I'll be doing a panel. So that's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be a panel on, uh, basically corporate involvement in political movements. And I'm sure we're going to talk about corporate demonetization, like on YouTube as well. And so that should be interesting. It's with Mythicist Milwaukee. And I'll give you some more details when I have them. But again, it's going to be in New Jersey. You guys can come. You guys can buy tickets, and tickets will help the show. So that should be really interesting. Um, and again, I will give you more details, maybe a link or something when I have it. So fun times. Kind of nervous about it because, for one, I have to fly, and for two, again, I have to fly, so that's not good. Oh, hey, look, I have audio that's too low. Well, that's always fun, isn't it? So here's what I'm. Are you sure it's too low? It does not look like it's too low. Um, I cannot film it because I will be taking part in the discussion. So I'm not sure if it will be filmed or not. But the surest way to see me, of course, is to actually go to New Jersey and buy a ticket. So again, it should be very interesting. Um, never flown in my life before, and so I mean, yeah, Okay. All right. I hope I don't freak out. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. The flight's gonna be fine. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, um, that said, let's get to the show. Okay. I feel like I'm embarrassing myself. I'm saying things that I probably should. All right. We got good news. So we have some breaking news. It turns out Daniel Pantaleo, the New York City police officer who fatally choked Eric Garner, has been fired from his job. Why he was not fired before, I have no idea. But finally, just finally, New York Police Commissioner James O'Neill announced that he will not be able to go back to his job. In fact, this is at a press conference. He said, I stand before you today, confident that I have reached the correct decision. It is clear that Daniel Pantaleo can no longer effectively serve as a New York City police officer. So, this is his first punishment. Why is it the first punishment? That's what I have to figure out. So it's been about 5 years since the death of Eric Garner, right? Again, illegal chokehold. You're not supposed to do that. Literally killed him. He said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. That's his last word. I can't breathe. You know what they said? F your breath. Don't care. They didn't care at all. This guy still suffered no consequences 5 years. And now finally, at a judge's request, and this is, let me go here. What's the, I don't know. I don't have the judge's name right here for some reason. Uh, but judge basically said you should get fired for this. Okay, well, hey, good. But what else is going to happen? Like nothing. Oh, you lose your job. Oh, sad, sad. Well, Eric Garner lost his life for what? For selling loose cigarettes in the street? That's all that was his crime. That was his crime that was worthy of the death penalty via by a cop. And yet, here you had a grand jury that found no reasonable cause to pursue criminal charges. And federal prosecutors this year said that they would not charge Pantaleo on civil rights grounds. Now, does that shock me? Of course not. This is the Trump Justice Department. So it's not surprising at all that they would be like, oh, a cop choking out a black man? Civil rights charges? Nope. Not gonna go in that direction. But because then if our racist cops go and kill somebody else, well then they might actually be held accountable. Not under the Trump not under the Trump administration, not under the Trump Department of Justice. Oh hell no. No, we're not gonna hold anybody accountable. Unless you're a person of color. Then we're gonna totally hold you accountable for literally everything, even your own death. That's what we're dealing with, right? So now, after this hit came up, right? So again, O'Neill did the right thing, and the only thing that he was allowed to do, he was able to do, is fire Pantaleo, right? Even so, the Police Benevolent Association of the City of New York, and talk about an Orwellian name, right? So now and this is President Patrick Lynch, he criticized the commissioner, not the officer, but the commissioner. He said he chose, quote, politics and his own self-interest over the police officers he claims to lead. Really? He also claimed that O'Neill was bowing to the pressure of cop haters and had opened the door for politicians to dictate the outcome of every single NYPD disciplinary proceeding. try to I'm trying to stay calm here, right? So here you have the so-called Police Benevolent Association, right? Defending a police officer who used an illegal, at the time, chokehold and murdered someone for selling loose cigarettes, someone who was not a danger to the community or the police officer, who was what? At least twice as big as that officer, could have crushed him, right? Instead, no, he said, let me go. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. You're defending. You call yourself benevolent? What's benevolent about that? Seriously, you need to go back and you need to change your name, for one. You need to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Try to figure out, why am I defending a scumbag like Pantaleo? Why am I defending this guy? Oh, right. Maybe because I'm exactly like him. I think exactly like him. I don't know. Now, Lynch, he's not done yet. He says that he said that morale at the NYPD would fall apart because Lynch had followed the recommendation of an administrative judge who said that Pantaleo should be fired. Now, the judge made a 100% correct decision. Again, this is all that they were allowed to do. They could not press charges against him, again, because the grand jury said no reasonable cause, which I think is ridiculous. And then, and I just mentioned the Trump administration, the Trump Justice Department, I believe in justice. But Lynch said this: the damage is already done. The NYPD will remain rudderless and frozen, and Commissioner O'Neill will never be able to bring it back. Now's the time for every PO in the city to make their own choice. Oh, yes, they have a choice, all right. Do you actually believe in justice and protecting your communities? Or do you believe that, I don't know, I guess, do you believe in the racial stereotypes? Do you believe black people are more dangerous for just selling cigarettes and that you should use maximum force upon them if they even question you or do anything potentially wrong? I mean, police officers all across the country have to make that decision, whether or not they want to be on the side of actually protecting and serving or protecting and serving the crap out of you, which is currently what they're doing right now. And it appears that these associations, well, we know what the side they're on. And thankfully, at least the commissioner did the right thing for once. And look, here's what we need. We need police reform. Absolutely, 100%. We need it yesterday. We need to train the police to not do these types of things, to not escalate to violence, to de-escalate, and to make sure that they don't kill people who they're supposed to be serving. I mean, it's only so, like, we're only asking for so much. Don't kill people. Okay. Anyway. Moving on. There we go. Now, President Trump went after Fox News on Sunday following a recent poll putting him behind all of the top Democratic candidates. Now, this poll, released on Friday, indicated that Trump would be beaten in a general election against former Vice President Joe Biden, which to me is shocking, Senator Bernie Sanders, not shocking at all, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and even Senator Kamala Harris. Now, let me give you the numbers. Let me give you the spread, right? So Biden beats Trump 50 to 38%. Okay, well, that's pretty good. Sanders follows with 48% versus Trump's 39. Warren at 46-39. Harris at 45-39. Notice it's just all the Democrats that are going down, whereas Trump is basically unless he goes against Biden, is around 39%. Never breaks 39. Interesting. And by the way, his numbers have gotten worse since the previous Fox News polls. At certain points, he was at 42, and then 41, and then just down and down and down and down he goes. So President Trump is deeply unpopular with the majority of the country. Now, he is incredibly popular with Republican voters, right? Especially evangelicals, despite his efforts to continue to try to piss them off with his constant swearing, which is ironic because I just also swore. Um, yeah, I did that story, I think, last week. They're mad at him for swearing at his rallies, even though his support is what, now down to like 86%, where it was at 93% among evangelicals. That's insane. Uh, so, and that's despite him, like I said, trying his very best to offend just about everybody in the country. Now, following this poll, Trump was talking to reporters and he said this. He said, when presented with these polls, he said, there's something going on at Fox. I'll tell you right now, and I'm not happy with it. I don't believe it. Really. He's just saying, like, I don't believe in a Fox News poll. Remember the days during the primary and during the general election in 2016 where he was like, look at this poll, I'm dominating. I'm doing so great in this poll against crooked Hillary. What happened? You don't like polls now? Now that you're president, you despise polls? That's really strange, especially polls from Fox freaking News. No, but here's why, he says, right? He says Fox has changed. Really? My worst polls have always been from Fox. You realize Fox, okay, Fox, I was going to say Fox doesn't have control over the polling, but that's not entirely true. I mean, look, you can do push polls, which are misleading. You can try to skew results. You can try to oversample conservative voters. You can do all that stuff, right, to affect poll outcome. And even if you do all that stuff, you still come out with 39%, only 39% of the country, because there's only so much you can stretch that math. And so only so much you can fudge numbers. And you still come out behind. That's bad. That's real bad. But there's only so much you can do when you have a super deeply unpopular president. But there's more. And he also took this opportunity to complain about debates. Now, that's interesting. Now, he said in the Democratic debates, he says, I'm the one who calls the shots on that, on the really big debates. And he also said about the polling and the network's leadership, I think Fox is making a big mistake. Well, no, wait a minute. He just said he controls the debates. He calls the shots in the debates. That's not true at all. And this is, remember, we're talking about general election debates, right? Not primary debates. It's a completely different animal, right? Flat out lie, what he says. He has no control over that. In fact, the Commission on Presidential Debates, not controlled by any political party or any sort of outside organization, and does not endorse, support, or oppose political candidates for parties, and has sponsored the general election presidential debates in every election since 1988. That's the general. But Trump says, no, I call the shots on that. And I think Fox News is doing terrible. Does he even know what he's talking about? No, the answer is no, absolutely not. So now, that should, of course, come at no surprise. Now, what's also not surprising is that he's flailing over his bad numbers, and he's attacking basically anyone and everyone, even Fox News hosts, right? So now, of course, there are some Fox News hosts that he'll never attack. People like Lou Dobbs, who said it's okay to run over protesters, literally. People like, Janine Pirro, shameless Trump defender. Sean Hannity, of course. Those people, they're fine. Trump loves those people. But when it comes to people like Juan Williams, who might tweak him a little bit now and then, very softly, This is what President Trump says. He says, Juan Williams at Fox News is so pathetic. And yet, when he met me at the Fox building lobby, he couldn't have been nicer and asked to take a picture of me and for his family. Yet he is always nasty and wrong. It's nasty, so nasty and so wrong. That needs to be on like a mug or something. So nasty, so wrong. I'd buy it. Now, the real story about that, by the way, yes, that sort of happened, but as usual with President Trump, it's also a lie. So let me give you the story here from Juan Williams. Now, he said, yes, he came up to Trump when he was at the Fox building, and he asked for a photograph, right? Only it wasn't for him or his family. It was for a security guard that wanted a picture with the president. So Juan Williams actually kind of proves that, well, okay, that he tries to be a decent person. Like, oh, you like Donald Trump? Well, Donald Trump's here. Let me ask him to get a picture with you. That's kind of nice of him to do, right? And let's be honest, that's a nice gesture for the security guard, right? Now, Williams says Trump completely mistook it, as he is wont to do, because he's not a smart person. He's not a very stable genius, right? So that's, again, a gigantic lie and sort of sad / hilarious. But as far as the overall point, right? Way to go, attacking a friendly outlet for reporting a poll. Because that's all this is, right? You want to do something about your poll numbers? Stop complaining about Fox News doing polls and actually do stuff that Americans like. I know it's a strange concept, but if you actually do things that are popular and stop saying things that are unpopular, then maybe you will be more popular. I know it's rocket science. Maybe it's just too much for someone with such big brain. Okay. Hijab. Yeah, that's right. The hijab. I don't know how people can listen to Janine. Look, I've been told that I have an annoying voice. And maybe. Man, Janine Pirro. It's like nails on a chalkboard. Yikes. All right, anyway, let's move on. We have, of course, disaster coming. So last week, one of the leading indicators of an oncoming recession reeled some of the markets. Now, if you're not familiar with, market speak or whatever stuff going on Wall Street, totally get you, totally understand. As I've said before on many occasions, things on Wall Street are usually a lot separate than, what's going on Main Street. However, there's one thing on Wall Street that can definitely affect Main Street, and that's when they cause a financial crisis, like a recession, which, again, one of those clear indicators of an incoming recession just happened. Now, it's called the yield curve inversion, right? And it's a strange name, but, again, a lot of these financial products and things that happen on Wall Street are fairly strange, right? So now this is a warning sign, apparently, that has predated every recession for the past 50 years. So it's really good at pointing towards, hey, we've got some troubled waters ahead, right? And so what happened, of course, it ended up causing a massive sell-off in the stock market, which lost the Dow about 800 points, right? Again, I know a lot of you people don't really care about, how many points rich people lost or corporations, whatever. Totally understand. But again, this is more important than that because it's at risk for the entire economy. So what happened is the yield, and this is what a yield curve inversion means, is that the 10-year, because the 10-year Treasury note, right? So this is bonds that people can buy in the United States government. There's a 10-year and there's a 2-year, right? So now the 10-year Treasury note broke below the rate for the 2-year Treasury note. And why is that important? Well, it means that investors would not get a better return for the 10-year bond over the 2-year bond. Now, again, that's important because investors expect a lower return when their money is tied up for a shorter period, right? So, okay, you get lower, like, because when you buy a bond, you get interest, right? For allowing the government to take your money and use it, because that's essentially what you're doing. And so, after that 2 or 10 year period, the government, not only with interest, pays you back, and that's how you make money on bonds. So now these investors are expecting a lower return for a shorter bond. They require a higher yield to give them more return and a long term investment. But now, at least for a short time, it flipped. So now it means that investors no longer have the confidence in your short term fiscal health of the economy. That's bad because it is a sign of an incoming recession. So following this, right, and I hope you guys were with me on that one because again, it can be a little bit confusing talking about, this Wall Street stuff and bonds and inversions, etc. Right, but again, this is not a good sign, and combined with all the other stuff that we constantly talk about in the show all the time, all those things add up to a perfect storm, right? So now, following this, President Trump talked to reporters on Sunday, and he said this, right? I don't see a recession. But wait, I don't see a recession. Well, okay, one hasn't happened yet. Yes, but there are a lot of warning signs towards that are pointing towards a recession. So maybe you could take a look and be like, oh, you know what? I see there's some warning signs. Maybe we can go and fix this before it gets too late. Before we actually have a recession, we can right the economy, right? That's not what Trump's saying. He says this. He says he doesn't see a recession because we're doing tremendously well. Our consumers are rich. I gave a tremendous tax cut, and they're loaded up with money. Our consumers are rich. Now, I wonder who he's referring to. I don't think he's referring to people making $30,000 a year, or people struggling to get into the middle class. I don't think those people really count. The average tax cut of somebody making around $20,000 a year, I think, or 25, was around $60. So I know you loaded up with money. Look at all that. Mr. Moneybags over there making 25K, just got $60. That's enough to maybe go out to eat twice, depending on the restaurant. Wow. Okay. So, but no, consumers are rich. I gave a tremendous tax cut. 83% of that tax cut, by the way, went to the wealthiest American, right? So, $60 for poor people, right? People in the working class, and over $60,000 a year, mind you, for people who are in the top 1%. That's the difference between the tax cut, right? So, this is all while, and these are some of the factors, right, that are really leading to this recession, right? You have half of all Americans that can't afford a $400 emergency. You have 70% of Americans who can't afford a $1,000 emergency. You have credit card debt that's over $1 trillion, student loan debt over $1.5 trillion. In total, you have consumer debt, which is at a combined $14 trillion. We have an economy that is financed by debt. Not good. And you know what? That number is above levels hit during the 2008 financial crisis. We are actually doing worse. Stagnating wages, and that's part of the reason, right? Slowing employment. Yes, there are companies that are actually starting to slow down and not hire as many people. Unemployment numbers are starting to go up again. We've got a ridiculous trade war with China. Again, perfect storm. Perfect storm. And yet the White House is in complete denial. Well, either that or they know exactly who they're talking about, and they're not talking about us. They're talking about, hey, man, the people in my social class, the fellow billionaires and millionaires, they're doing fantastic. Oh, we're doing great. Thank you for the tax cuts, Donald Trump. That's probably what's happening. But anyway, so now we're going to go to, again, the hilarious denials here. And this is White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro, as well as Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow. So now Kudlow goes on to meet the press, and he says this. He says, "quote Well, I tell you what, I sure don't see a recession. No kidding, right? I think actually the second half, the economy is going to be very good in 2019. No, I don't see a recession." Now, look, if you guys don't know who Larry Kudlow is, right, um, or are not familiar with his work, he has had a very bad track record of making predictions. In fact, back in 2007, right before the recession hit, he said the same thing in articles penned in the National Review and other outlets, right? So now, let me give you a snippet from one of his articles that he wrote called Bush Boom Continues. It's as bad as it sounds, right? He says, quote, "You can call it Goldilocks 2.0, but you can't call it a recession." That's Goldilocks. Oh, that sounds really nice, Goldilocks, right? But totally not a recession. In fact, he says, "There's no recession coming. The pessimistas were wrong. It's not going to happen. At a bare minimum, we are looking at Goldilocks 2.0, and that's a minimum. Goldilocks is alive and well." Apparently, this is before Goldilocks was mauled by the three bears. He also said, "The Bush boom is alive and well. It's finishing up its sixth consecutive year with more to come. Yes, it's still the greatest story never told." Maybe that's because that story was complete and utter fiction. That's why nobody tells it. And then, of course, uh, afterwards, that story basically turned into a nightmare. It turned into a horror story. Okay. Now, there's more terrible predictions. In a column in February 2008, Kudlow says, "I'm going to bet that the economy will be rebounding sometime this summer, if not sooner. We're in a slow patch. That's all. It's nothing to get up in arms about." You can tell he's starting to get a little worried there. Like, no, no, slow patch, just slow patch. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. This is fine. Well, obviously, again, we all know what happened, right? We all lived through it. In fact, most of our generation, the millennial generation, kind of grew up through this entire thing. So, yeah, turned out to be real bad. Um, but again, this is the same guy saying the same thing now that he said back then. I mean, it's kind of like that scene in The Naked Gun where there's all the stuff exploding in the background, and the guy's like, "Nothing to see here. Go home. Everything's fine." Or again, as I just mentioned, like the dog in that meme, but the house is on fire. No, this is fine. What are you talking about? Recession? I don't see a recession. What recession? What warning signs? No, Bush boom. I mean, Trump boom. Great. Fantastic. This is why nobody should ever take Larry Kudlow seriously, or Peter Navarro, for that matter. He was wrong then. He's likely wrong now. He hasn't learned a damn thing. And basically, what he is now is he is a cheerleader for Donald Trump and a cheerleader for the top 1%. Because you know who are the only people that made it through the 2008 recession even better than they were before? The wealthy Americans, the top 1%. So maybe, I guess, in their world, everything is fine. Okay. I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We got more stories, so no worries on that. We're going to go with the Trump trade war, and then we'll go into a bit of a heartbreaking story, actually, to be honest. And I feel really bad talking about it, but I'm not going to give everything away. So just come back or stay here. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'm going to go get a drink, and we'll be back with the rest of the show. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TWD Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a super chat here from Sarge Tech. Says Fox News is dangerous and they mislead their viewers on a daily basis. That's true. Today, Pantaleo was fired and Fox News takes the side of the PBA president. Again, totally. Um, you're right, of course. Nonetheless, when they do polls, again, some of the polls from Fox, remember, had Bernie Sanders in the lead. So, as always, you have to look at the methodology. Make sure that what they're doing, if they're oversampling. CNN also got caught misleading on polls, right? CNN's done a lot of misleading, to be honest with you. Uh, so they've, I mean, oversampled Biden supporters, and so that's why you ended up having a lot of people showing a lot of people supporting Biden when really there isn't a whole lot of energy out there for Joe Biden. I don't know where these Biden voters are. As Biden's more of like one of those people that are like, I don't know, I guess if I have to support him, I'd rather vote for him than a fascist. So I guess whatever, right? But no, I don't see that like big support for Joe Biden. It's crazy. But anyway, so thank you for that super chat, Sarge Tech. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of people on. That's pretty awesome. Over 200 people on the stream today. So hey guys, thank you. Try to relax in flights. Yeah. Oh yeah. Uh, and if all else fails, I'll probably just drink. So that works. Okay. Uh, let's go into the next story here. But thanks for the super chats. I almost said pants. This is Monday, man. All right. All right. So, following the disaster that is Donald Trump's trade war with China, the president has decided to call on farmers to weather the crap storm that he himself has created, which, of course, led to a lot of anger among farmers. Some of the things he says is that, oh, our farmers, they're great patriots, and we want them to continue to support him while he does a trade war with China. Yeah. So, like I said, how'd that go? Well, Gary Wordish, Minnesota Farm Bureau president, had this to say. This wound is self-inflicted by our president. We definitely agreed with it in the beginning, but it doesn't appear that there's a plan B. Some of the callous comments come, especially from the president. You know that farmers are winning. We're great patriots. That's very insulting. Now, one of the other ones comments came from Sonny Perdue, who got himself in a little bit of trouble by accusing farmers who want to sell their crops, who don't want to just get welfare checks or handouts from the government, which is what they're doing. The Trump government is literally giving them socialism and farm bailouts because of what they did on trade. Sonny Perdue says, quit whining. You guys are just whining. And he tried to make a joke. And obviously it fell flat because these are people's livelihoods here. And Sonny Perdue, of course, he knows nothing about actually working for a living. Big shocker, right? So now what's interesting about this, right, is here are the farmers that said, well, look, we agreed from the beginning because we thought we were going to actually do something. We thought you had a plan. Turns out you had no plan and you have no plan B. Yep. That's what we were telling you. He's an idiot. He has no idea what he's doing. He just gets up there and says, I'm going to do tariffs. The tariffs good. Trade war's good. Easy to win. They're going to be great. And then turns out, not great. So now, let me give you the rest of his statement. He said, that's coming from someone who's never faced the challenges of a family farmer, referring, of course, to President Trump. I go into the bank and tell the lender I can't make the payment because we lost our market. The banker's not going to tell me you don't have to make your payment because you're a patriot. Oh, I feel that statement so much right now. I mean, it's absolutely true. Like, oh yeah, you can call me other nice things you want. You say we're doing a tremendous job, fantastic. I don't pay the bills, bro. Like, I gotta pay bills, and if I want to pay bills, I gotta go and actually sell product. How can I sell product if you took my entire market away? And your subsidies, by the way, most of the Trump subsidies for farmers went to giant agricultural corporations anyway, not the small family farmer that he purports that it's supposed to go to. So there's that as well. But seriously though, you guys literally thought that there was a plan B. No, dude, no. He's look and look, this guy, wordish, not alone. Fellow farmer Cindy Vanderpool, she admitted that sometimes she can't even sleep at night because she's so worried about what's going to happen. Um, she said, uh, that farmer we just heard from, or people who run businesses who need components of China, face a lot of uncertainty. It looks like it's not going to go away anytime soon. And of course, IMF chief economist Ken Rogoff had agreed. He said that Trump's trade war isn't just impacting farms. In fact, it's impacting a lot of our trade with China because we end up paying the tariffs. It's not China paying the tariffs, it's importers for Chinese goods. And look, sometimes those are not, finished, whatever, cell phones, etc. But also materials that people use, or companies, I should say, use to build products here in the United States, importing certain materials. So that's a problem. And Rogoff says, look, businesses aren't investing it here at home either. It's toxic for the global economy. There may be some long run gain with dealing with China. I agree. But it could come home to roost in the United States, which it kind of already has. And look, let's be honest, right? There are things that we need to deal with China on. Currency manipulation, right? Dumping, when you take so much product and you dump it here in the United States, not physically, but you sell it at such a low price that it undercuts American markets. And they did that with, I think, steel and aluminum. So look, there are problems and there are terrible trade practices. There's IP theft everywhere when it comes to China. We all know this, but there are better ways to actually solve those problems than to start a ridiculous trade war that China was in no doubt prepared for. Again, China is a communist country. They have state-run currency, right? They don't have markets. They control all the markets. So how do you deal with a power that can literally just, you know, control its own market and say we're going to devalue, or we're going to, up the value of our currency whenever we just damn well feel like it? How do you deal with a country like that? I don't know. But at least I admit that I don't know how to deal with it. Whereas Trump says, oh, trade wars, fun and easy to win. We're going to be winning. Farmers are winning. Are you winning yet? Do you feel like you're winning? Reading these comments from these farmers, as I have on many different segments, they do not feel like they are winning. Now, again, soybeans. This was one of the big exports to China. Soybeans, the soybean market, it's gone. China was buying up a majority of American soybeans. Now, they don't have a market anymore. How are you going to replace that? You can't just find a brand new market as big as China's overnight. And even if you're looking for a new market, which you should be, right? Who's going to trust the United States to honor trade agreements anymore? That's the problem, right? The long-term damage to America's reputation. And not just on trade agreements, but on treaties as well. Look at the Iran deal. Donald Trump took that, ripped it right up. Who would trust the United States at all? Our reputation has been flushed down the golden toilet. Who's going to want to do business with us again? And that's the question, right? Even after Donald Trump's gone, these problems are going to persist. And surely, any country who looks at a country like America that is capable of electing a petulant man-child like Trump, they're going to think twice about trading with us. They're going to think twice about wanting to do business with us. There's one thing, it's one thing to try and go for fair deals, right? I'm all for fair trade deals. I'm all for trade that benefits both the American worker and, of course, the foreign workers, right? Which that would be fair, equitable trade. Donald Trump doesn't care about any of that. He's not smart enough. All he wants to do is basically win, and trade was an issue that he decided was popular enough because NAFTA was incredibly unpopular. That hey, man, I can win with that issue. It's a little bit of A/B testing. Oh, do you like NAFTA? No. Okay, well, I hate NAFTA too. Great. Yay. And then that's basically what happened. He's done this all throughout all of his entire issues. He goes and he A/B tests the crowd, and he goes with what is the most popular. And of course, when it comes to the Fox News audience, what's most popular in a lot of the conservatives? Racism. So generally, that's what he ran his entire campaign on. But there were some other issues that were interspersed as well that he has not delivered on whatsoever. So now, speaking of Trump, right? So at the end of the day, he cannot take the blame for anything whatsoever. In fact, according to a source inside the Trump administration, he's, quote, rattled. He thinks that all the people that do this economic forecasting are a bunch of establishment weenies who don't know anything about the real economy and they're against Trump. You know, because of course, nothing is ever Donald Trump's fault. It's all everybody else. You know, that's as dumb as saying that everything is Donald Trump's fault. On this, you can't look at the situation and say, he done effed up real good. Again, putting the tariffs on China without a plan. Okay, so I could understand maybe if this was a negotiating tactic, if you say, I'm going to leverage a threat of tariffs on China in the hopes of getting them to the negotiating table so that we can negotiate a more beneficial trade agreement for the United States. Totally could understand that. Now, did he do that? I guess maybe he tried, but he's a terrible negotiator. I think he's one of the worst negotiators on the planet. And so, because of that, real people, real working people, farmers in the Midwest, they get to suffer thanks to this idiocy and absolute gross incompetence of the president. Okay. Moving on. There we go. A black woman on Twitter is shocked that Trump's racism in Fox News is straining her relationship to her Republican husband, who happens to be white. So now, this was a Twitter rant that happened on Saturday by a woman going by the name of Glass Butterfly. Now, she tweeted this out. My white Republican husband is starting to hate me because the longer we live through this administration, the blacker I become. Okay, well, what does that mean? We'll get to that. Um, she says, any interracially and opposing politically affiliated couples going through this, like I have no idea how to balance who we are or are becoming. Now, again, what does she mean by blacker? Well, she said she fake dreaded her hair. Okay. She wears African garb. She talks about the good fight. Okay. So basically, she's getting in tune with her heritage. I don't see a problem with that. Being outspoken about her beliefs, again, I don't see a problem with that. Now, the Trump administration has been incredibly toxic towards people of color and other minorities. So if you're going to embrace what makes you different, your diversity, in the face of that, well, that's perfectly acceptable, right? That there's no problems with it at all. It's a perfectly reasonable reaction to what's going on to say, no, I am going to assert my differences. Even though I'm an American, I'm a proud American, I'm going to embrace, in her words, she's going to embrace her blackness. Okay. So now the problem for her is that it's created some issues. She said because of this, she's the last person he wants to be involved with, and said that if this is a test, he is failing miserably. So not being a good husband. So what is he doing that isn't, it is not being a good husband? Well, she says that everything I do for him and our household is starting to be followed by derogatory comments towards me. I start to think that it is the right media Or has this always been who he is? So now that's interesting, right? So again, I don't know the dynamics in their household, what's going on, but generally, if her, if she's to be believed, if you start, doing things, or if you're doing things around the house and you're constantly being derided, having terrible things, terrible names shouted at you or whatever for no reason, well, that's problematic to say the least, right? So again, I don't know this guy personally. I don't presume to know, and I don't presume to know the entire relationship. But I have a little bit of an idea of how Trump supporters generally act in the most broadest terms. And from what I found is that, look, this is kind of who they are. They are racist and misogynistic and wrapped up in quite a bit of white privilege. So, and what Fox News does, going to her point about the media, is that media has been pushing this right on the right wing for quite some time. They rile up people, they appeal to their biases, and then not only do they appeal to those, racial biases, they amplify them to get people who, might clutch their purse a little tighter at the sight of a black person in an elevator to now start openly yell the N word or call the police when a black person decides he wants to, grill outside or have a barbecue or attend a pool party. That doesn't happen overnight. That gets amplified. Those biases are not only found out, but are like, again, I hate saying the word, amplify, but it's kind of what it does. You're saying, oh no, that's okay. I feel the same way. Yeah, I'm also scared when black people when I see a black person. No, that's not okay. That's not okay. Or yeah, oh yeah, black people are thugs, man, criminals everywhere. That's not true. That's not true. Again, that's a reinforcement of your bias. And that's what Fox News does on a daily basis against minorities, against people of color. That's why they're dangerous, right? And it all starts with some of these ridiculous stereotypes, right? And look, Trump, we know Trump believes in those stereotypes because we've heard it all before. If Puerto Ricans are lazy, right? Because they don't want to help themselves. They don't want to fix their own island, which is part of the United States, by the way. And it's the government's job to help them recover after a hurricane. Yeah, blacks are criminals, and et cetera, right? Jewish people, and he's used this before. Jewish people, globalist agenda, and all about money and negotiating and all that stuff. We've heard these tropes because Donald Trump has openly said them. This is not like a quiet, whistle that nobody can hear, a dog whistle. No, this is a human whistle. This is like a train whistle. Everybody can hear it. Everybody can see it. And that's one of the things that President Trump, ironically, has done. He has blown open the door on the racism inside of the Republican Party, which they denied to exist. Well, now you can't just look at it and go, oh, no, it doesn't exist. It's right in your face. It's right here. It's right here. You can't not notice it. You have to try really hard to not notice it and to not, okay, whatever, right? So this is who they are, right? So now he's not ashamed of these believing in these stereotypes, by the way, and that's why a lot of Trump supporters love him. Oh no, he's got the bravery to actually speak out and to say the things that we've always been thinking. That's why we love him. That's why we defend him. Oh no, he's not a racist. He's just speaking truth because all these things are true. That they are the thugs. They are the bad person. So again, that's the Trump supporters, right? So now you might think, but wait a minute. But he's a white Republican. He can't be racist because he's married a black woman. They're an interracial couple. Well, let me just be really clear. Having black friends and marrying a black person does not make you immune for racism. It is not a shield that you can use. You can love someone of a different race and think the rest of them are bad or a majority, or that, oh, no, no, it's okay. She's one of the good ones. You know how demeaning that is? And again, there's the whole thing about the white savior complex that some people have too. Oh, no, no, I saved you. You're one of the good ones. I saved you from marrying the rest of that trash. Now you're married to me. That makes you better because I'm obviously better. I'm not saying that a lot of interracial marriages are like that. I think most of them are not. But you've got a white Republican who's a Trump supporter. There might be something there, right? There might be some of those factors at play in this relationship. At least when she, talks about it, because it seems apparent that from her description is that he loved her until she started being black culturally. And then it's like, oh, why you got to do that? It was nice when you were just pretending to be white or not being quite as black. But now when you're more black, can't stand that. Can't stand that. Gee, I wonder. I wonder why. Wonder if that guy's racist at all. Now, finally, she says this quote, I'm just trying to come to terms with who my husband really is. And it's hurt. It's hard, and I'm confused. Now, look, I can't help but feel terrible for her, right? To one day realize that her husband, the person that she does, love, is not who she thought he was. And that's got to be the worst. I mean, I can't imagine dealing with the emotional kind of whirlwind or the pain that she might be feeling. How do you deal with that? Like, that's something that I've never had to deal with. I'll never have to deal with. So I feel really bad. I hope she can figure herself out, chart a better path forward. Um, with whatever she decides to do. My advice would be get out, get out, get out, get out. But doesn't have to necessarily be that way. That's really on her. Um, but I just hope that she finds a place where she's respected for being herself, because in the end, that's you know being loved and respected. That's what matters. Okay, all right. So that's all I got time for today. Thank you guys for going around the nation with me. Please like and share the stream. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Great viewer numbers today. Thank you guys for joining in. I appreciate that. I love it when you guys watch the live stream. Please share it out. Like I said before, please consider becoming a patron and supporting independent progressive media. And that's it. Love you guys. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys tomorrow.